You're listening to Art Workers, the Independent Artists Forum. I'm your host, Carl Bindman. Thanks for tuning in. Today's episode of Art Workers features a conversation with Yibin Wang. Yibin and I talk about a bunch of stuff. We talk about how he came to directing and to New York. We talk about finding freedom through form. We talk about the work of building the right culture in your rehearsal room. And we talk, of course, about our work together, adapting Franz Kafka's A Hunger Artist to the stage. All that and more right now. Over to you, Carl. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Art Workers. If everything is going the way it's supposed to, this is episode number 2. And you were just introduced to this episode by me, Carl Bindman, your host and also interviewer. Joining me today, I'm very excited, is Yibin Wang, who is a director that I know, thankfully, because Yibin directed me in a wonderful and exciting and strange adaptation of a wonderful and exciting, strange short story by Franz Kafka, A Hunger Artist. And that's how I met Yibin this very year, in fact. And I'm going to talk with Yibin a little bit about our process together and his directing process. But first, Yibin, I want you to maybe tell the people a little bit about who you are. I'll just throw in one thing to start, which is you just finished a Master of Fine Arts in directing from Columbia University. So congrats on that.
Thank you. It's been a long journey, of course. So, should I start with the...
Oh, please. Well, however you think.
How did I came here? Well, I'm from China. That was the first thing I would say, I guess. And I came to the States when I was 18 to do undergrad. And I was not a typical art kid. And all of my family members, they are not in the art industry, so I'm kind of the only one. So I was designed to be somebody else.
Right. Why did you start studying art in undergrad? Did you study directing?
I studied theater at Bard College in upstate New York. And it was pretty strange. Well, because I started doing theater in high school. Really, it's a really big coincidence, but it was a coincidence. I started doing theater in high school. I was mostly acting, and I did a little bit of directing, even though we didn't say it was directing at that time. We were just saying, okay, you're gonna lead the group,
right,
and just make sure that rehearsal is not messy.
Did you find you had a natural affinity for that work?
A little bit, I think so. Yeah. But at that time, I was more actually into acting. I was like, okay, maybe it was liberating. It was liberating for me to, especially, I went to a normal high school in China. So that means a lot of schoolwork, a lot of classroom times. So it's actually really, really liberating for you to get out of classroom. And when the other people are studying, you're doing theater. You know what I mean? It's so special. And everybody was kind of driving towards a same goal. That's something interesting to me too. And I was like, wow, we're doing something important. And this is not something important that our parents or our teacher was telling us. So that's something I was like, wow, that's cool. So
and that's why you decided to pursue it
in undergrad. Yeah. Well, I like many Asian kids, I tried to do something else besides theater. So my parents will be like, okay, you are doing real stuff. So I did a lot of social sciences classes
Yeah, well,
at Bard.
that kind of reflects my experience in my undergraduate degree. I mean, I didn't go to Bard College. I went to Concordia University in Montreal, and I did journalism, and then moved into theater when I kind of got exposed to it there. Kind of similarly, feeling this like a feeling of freedom and collaboration in a way. Because the journalistic practice is very collaborative, right? You have your reporters, you are the reporter, you have an editor, you're working with the editor. Obviously, you are collaborating with the subject of your story or subjects of your story, if there's more than one, either explicitly or covertly collaborating with them, right? And there was just something about the honesty I felt about acting with a group where it's like, oh no, we are explicitly all just making a story together. There's no pretense of like the we have to tell the truth. We have to represent facts. We have to do all this while also actually just building a little story, So in undergrad, did you go for, you said you found acting first.
Oh yeah. I was trying to do acting more, but it was hard because at that time, well, I was 18. I came to the States for the first time, and navigating language barrier and cultural shock, it's something harder and a bigger theme for me at that time. So I was trying to do more acting, and I did. I think starting from the second semester of freshman year, but I never felt accepted or included in the mainstream. Like, for example, I went to like many auditions for the main stage production of the theater program,
right?
But I didn't get casted because
really?
I was nervous. I now thinking back, I was nervous, and I was also, I think I was not really dedicated when I was doing the auditions. So that's, I guess, why. And I think very soon I started to realize, because of this language barrier, which I think I'm still navigating now, it's better. It's easier for me now, but which I'm still navigating that. Because of that language barrier, and I know some people have different situations. Some people, even they have barriers, they just go for it. They don't care. But I think I did care a lot when I was in undergrad. So that prevented me from being really authentic in acting. It's I think it's related. So.
Well, so the freedom that you describe that drew you to acting, do you find that also in your directing practice? And just for the listener, the reason that I'm sort of on this track of questioning, to be clear, is Yibin directed me in a show that we did, as I mentioned. And the thing about Yibin's work, if you haven't seen it, is it's very specific of vision. Yibin has has marked out for himself I'll talk to you. You're right here. You have marked out for yourself a sort of visual language that I think is really clear, and I think lends itself well to interpreting texts in novel ways. I've only worked with you on the one piece, but I got the feeling from the clarity of your vision in the piece and the way that you were able to wrangle a large group of people working on tech, on audio, on projections, on this really interesting and strange set that, I just feel like you have a really clear vision for how you want these stories to be communicated on stage. And you went to Columbia University, where Anne Bogart is a teacher, and Anne Bogart often, I think in The Director Prepares, she writes about how like limitation and resistance are productive forces and actually lead to kind of freedom in creation. And I guess what I'm asking, long-winded way to ask, is where do you find freedom in directing?
Well, it's interesting because I was actually thinking about that this morning. Because we have to. Well, I told you before we have this retreat this week with Anne, and we are going to present what we learned to her during that 3-day retreat. So I was thinking about that myself too. Like, what do I find fascinating and surprising too in my directing journey? I think, as you just said, because there's certain limitation which I recognized really early. I was thinking about this concept of form, and especially form versus content. I feel like because I was in my formative years, I guess, the content is not sometimes always the first thing that I can grab and be like, okay, I understand the content really.
You mean in the sense of like the meaning of a text?
The meaning of the text or the context of the text, because most of the texts that I learned are Western, some are classic, some are new plays. So I think that always made me wanted to go to form more, and just little by little I started to be not only satisfied with content. So if it's only the story that I'm interested in or like interesting, it's not gonna be the reason why I want to do it. I want to do a play or whatever art it is. It should be the so not only the story, not only the content, but the form.
Yeah.
Meaning your relationship with the audience, your the whole structure that is going to be, yeah, I'm a big structure person too. So yeah, that's why I think it always make me feel like, okay, I have to really think about not just what I say, but how I say it. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Is that a, you said that you kind of developed this knowledge. Mm-hmm. Were there any moments in the journey where you were like, you know what, I am drawn more to formalism than to, being a plot guy? Also, not to say that Yibin does not do plot. I think you have an attention and a sensitivity to story and to moment that shouldn't be discarded. But I do appreciate how and I recognize also the attraction to form as the lever for opening those sorts of things.
I can't think of a particular moment, but I think it should be around I think when I was a third year, I think in America you called it junior year.
Listen, I kind of refuse to learn the like freshman, junior, senior system.
Yeah, I was
I also refuse to learn Fahrenheit.
Okay. Good. on my iPhone, I still use the
Celsius. Yeah, it's the humane way to. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Moments.
Moments. Well, but when I was a third year student in undergrad, I know just gradually I started to look into more works that has bigger or like bolder theatrical / directorial approach. And some of the works that really influenced me, there's one work, I think that was earlier than third year, but there was one work by I think he's Austrian. I'm not sure. No, he's not Austrian. He's Swiss. Milo Rau, he's a Swiss director.
Currently practicing?
Yes. And he did a piece called 5 Easy Pieces. It's about a how to say children murderer. Like it's the protagonist, or what they're talking about is a real case of children murderer. I think that shocked Belgium, like the whole country, a lot back in I can't remember the year. What they're doing is they ask several kids, like under 12 kids, to play that murderer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to reenact those murder scenes, which is really controversial and really, really intense.
But also kind of brilliant because, like, I think in the same way that perhaps somebody who is so disturbed that they would murder a bunch of children, they don't really grasp the problem of it, right?
Yeah.
And a child, surely a 12-year-old child, would also have this kind of distance from the act of violence.
Yeah.
And that's
really interesting. Well, I think what impresses me was not necessarily, again, that content. I think there's the director smartly created a relationship between the original case versus having the kids playing, because it's they made that piece with a light touch. It's not like anything bloody on stage, but instead there will be only one adult on stage interviewing those kids, be like, how do you really think about, what happened if something like that? But for me, they were talking they talked a lot about performativity. Like they will ask a kid, like, what is theater for you? If I ask you to play a murderer, would you do that? And then the kids will just answer that genuinely. That's fascinating to me. That's something really live, and they're talking about certain, way of interaction. Like either this person is trying to play another identity. What does that mean? And they just try to, break it down and present it to you on stage in a really interesting way. So I think starting from that piece, I started to also look into question of performativity and what does it mean for me to play somebody else to you? And I think that's a big part of the form concept that I was thinking.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It strikes me as you're saying that how you have, I think, because you did a fair amount of training as an actor before moving to directing, right? Like you have
a little bit, I guess.
A little bit. Well, yeah, I guess what was your actor training? Because this is something that I am always frustrated by in the training of actors, I think, is the total or not total, but the pretty strong disinterest in theory and kind of like a major emphasis on just practice. Which of course very important. An artist needs to have their practice, but if they don't have a practice undergirded by theory, if they don't have knowledge for themselves of the practice and why these practices exist and what they want in relation to them, they're just they're serving the practice instead of the practice serving them, So for you, like the work that you do as a director in terms of building these forms and theorizing about your practice, how do you bridge that gap with actors?
Well, as I said, I didn't really get a really robust or like rigid acting training,
which is probably good.
Yeah, well, when I was in China in high school, we did have like acting teacher, and they're from like college theater club. So, but what they got was more like a Chinese way of Stanislavsky system, which is different from, I guess, the especially different from the later Stanislavsky system. And
well, here in the States too, I mean, the most widespread version is the sort of like early bastardized Strasbergian version.
Yeah. It's really weird. And I think I started to receive that training just a little bit. And well, it was not enlightening at all. So I was still trying to figure out what does it mean to play a character well. And then I got here. There are some because we took classes in a liberal arts college. It's not a conservatory, so it's never a designed curriculum. I took some physical theater classes. It's more like a Lecoq system. And also my acting teacher back then, who is actually a director, just give us a lot of theater games for us to play. I didn't really know what system it belongs to, But in general, I think I started to form a understanding, at least for me, about like having more of imagination and outside, kind of outside, like from outside in instead of from being inside out. That's, I think, what my training has influenced me, because you really have to, I think, for me, it's, I believe the artists, I mean, the actors are those artists who have those tools, either imaginations or something physically that they can use to change how they feel inside.
Instead of generating feeling.
Yeah, that's how I was trained.
And how do you then? So if I understand, those are kind of the values that you look for in acting and in the actors you're working with.
Yeah.
So how do you communicate the intention of your piece or of the form that you're trying to construct to an actor with or without those tools?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's important that the actor. So I think I would I would love to spend a lot of time talking with actors just about what I was seeing in my head, what my vision is, and why do I do this? And I would be like, like checking the actors in their eyes and be like, are you really getting it? That thing, that's important to me. So that conceptual maybe, but also that conceptual understanding of the piece of my vision and that resonance, that will be always the first step.
Is that an ongoing check-in as well? Or is that kind of like, are we on the same page? Great, let's run and not worry about that.
I think that's definitely an ongoing conversation, but the first, I think the first conversation is always important for me. So
I will say that bears out in evidence in that before we even started working together, we got coffee and talked about Kafka.
Yeah. I really feel that, because it's not only just the like. I'm not doing a test, but it's more
kind of a test. It's a friendly test.
I was tested by you too.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, but it was more like checking the vibe and see what you are, see what kind of what's your way of getting to a work and all that stuff. So that's always the first step, and then. In terms of techniques, it's there. I'm always learning. Like how do I really communicate with the actors efficiently, or like our great teachers always tell you, there are some theories about it, which I don't really utilize them well. I'm not sure if you know them. There's one theory which I was like a little bit. I was laughing at it a little bit. They one of my teacher. Laughing in a good way. I was like, oh, we can do that. Actually, that's interesting. One of my teacher was telling me that, well, actually, when you communicate with an actor about one note, you should do this. You should do I think.
Can I guess? Is it an Oreo?
Yes, that's an Oreo. I didn't know that before. I really didn't know that before. I was like, oh. But I don't know. It sounds a little bit, so I tried, but it sounds a little bit too like
formulaic.
Yeah.
I hate that personally.
Right.
I think it's like, just give me the fucking note.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
Tell me I need to enter faster. You don't need to tell me I entered well and then tell me it needs to be faster.
Right. Well, I guess in some scenarios, in some specific circumstances, they are helpful. But I always find it like, okay, this is good. Like.
But we can always tell. What's the sincere actual note here, and it's not. Oh, you did a good job. It's do this better.
That's what I was. Yeah, that was my experience too. I was like, oh shit, like they can definitely see what's real behind
actors.
This.
I don't know if you know this, are sensitive to intention.
So but anyway, I think for me it's always important that the actors as a person gets it, and then I don't really, well, I mean, it's important that sometimes the look is, the look, it should be important, but yeah, it's always for me more important that, the actors themselves, like I'm more interested in the actors as a person themselves, and then as a more like a collaborator, so then we can develop this character together instead of I'm having a character, then we ask you to like plug in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that builds a great feeling of like trust on the team, where if everybody is like, at least according to the director, we all match or relatively close to match the same vibe. It's like, okay, so we're all on board for this project. We all sort of agree on the direction of the project, and now we can all collaborate. We can all have a hand in the pie instead of just coming in, like you said, and plugging in. Yeah. Where it's like, well, I need an actor to do this. They're going to show up and they're going to do that because I told them to. Right. I think it and from my experience working on A Hunger Artist, it does give a sense of ownership and agency in the space to the actor, which is, for me, a good thing to have in a room. I know there might be some actors who disagree, who just want to show up and be told what to do, but I imagine those aren't the actors that you would want to work with. When you do, because we for full disclosure for the listener, Yibin and I are neighbors. So after our rehearsals on A Hunger Artist, we would take the train home together many times. Sometimes Yibin had to stay late because that's what the director does. They have meetings. But when we would take the train together, we would talk about this sort of stuff. And I asked you on one of those train rides what you look for in an audition. And you had said that you look for, and tell me if this has changed, but you said that you look for a change. You look for an actor who has a change between how they started and how they ended. Do you take that into like building pieces? Like, 'cause that's something that I'm always curious about as an actor is the director's process in auditioning and the director's process in directing. Because in the same way that as an actor, the work for an audition is pretty fundamentally different than the work of building a character for a show. Where for you is the crossover? Do you take this audition search feeling into the scene, for example?
Yes. I think, well, to be more, I think, specific what I was looking for is definitely, yes, change. But also I think it was more about how do you make those changes, right? Because I remember we did the like just one 1 minute monologue, but then I give you three drastically different circumstances and see how you.
One was like as if you're the witness in a court.
Yeah.
Another was.
I always use the Times Square one. I don't know if you.
Times Square. I don't think I got Times Square.
Well, it was just like if do this monologue as if you were in Times Square and there were like three strangers trying to talk to you, and something like that.
Why do you choose that? Why is that something that you continually use?
Oh, interesting. Well, it was just I was trying to see, because that's a reference I guess a lot of people can relate to, and so I was trying to see if the actor can really get the believable responses, or like how they really react to that environment in a way with their imagination. And I don't know, maybe personally, I just find it was awkward and hard to deal with. So I was like, what are you going to deal with?
If an actor who is encountering a challenge decides to engage or back away,
that's true.
A lot.
That also says a lot. That definitely also says a lot. So yeah, I'm looking for those also, like how are you going to adapt those situations really quickly? And then see what your choices are. And
because if you're in the same situation, I mean, if you're in a different situation and you make the same choice, it's a missed opportunity.
Right. Exactly. So, and then what was the question again?
The sort of overall. Well, I asked why Times Square.
And then you asked how.
What? Yeah. Do you take the audition process into the room?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I think because I have that kind of measurement system. I think I'm looking for the qualities of like change and how they do adjustment in a short amount of time. So then I wish in that way I wish I can curate a rehearsal space, a rehearsal environment where we can just go for it. Like I think this feeling of going for it is really important. So we can just go for it, see if that works. If that doesn't work, we will make a quick decision and then go to another direction. I think that's what I'm always trying to find and trying to curate. And then everybody will be, I think, just because we're all doing it for the work. So it's not like, I think it was just the feeling of, okay, we are not attaching to this idea for too much because you know, you will always be like, I think this is great. Somebody else will be like, this is okay, right? But if we all have the agreement that we are doing like step by step, like notes by note or direction by direction in service of the bigger picture of the piece, then, you know, we can just like, so maybe just like, okay, so this feeling of I can just throw it really easily and the next one may be better. That feeling is also important. So
it feels like it takes the pressure off the actor as well, I think, to be like, I have to get this choice to be correct. I have to like, I can just throw something into the pot without ego. And
yeah.
I feel like I said something very similar to Helen because we were talking about sort of our values as actors. But what you're describing here makes a lot of sense to me because, I mean, the very first thing you said was like, when I first found theater, it was this sort of collaborative space of play and freedom. I think it's a success in aligning your values to your work. It seems to me that the way that you build a rehearsal room, and I can speak from experience, is very consciously every step is towards creating that feeling for yourself. Which I guess leads me to the next question I have, which is what happens for you, or how do you navigate when that isn't happening?
Well, I think I'm still figuring it out, but it's a great question. It's, I think, something I was honestly, I was struggling with like not a lot, but like every time I met those situations, I was I think I was a bit like I will be like holding back a little bit, which is something I think I still want to work on, so I can be more just like, you know, neutral and just be, okay, this is what it is.
What do you mean by holding back?
I will, because those liberating feelings or those collaborative feelings always rely on my everybody's openness. But I think I know that I have to open up myself a bit more first. And so I think I will, you know, so what I mean by holding back is those kind of I will become like more, I guess, self-judgmental, like judgmental to myself. And I will be like, what's wrong with me? You know, that kind of feeling will come up. Then that's closing the openness. You know what I mean? Like then I will be struggling with a certain mentality of myself instead of really open myself up and embracing everybody's ideas. So that's what I mean by holding back.
Right.
And I think I don't know. I think maybe I'm thinking when I was trying to speak. I think maybe one way is to just be really. I guess one way I will navigate it will be just clarify the boundary again, like to see what's our job in the rehearsal room, and then just try to push through and see what happens. Yeah, because I think sometimes it will be helpful to be like, okay, this is not happening, and also being honest. I think being honest, just speak that aloud.
Yeah,
be like, I'm not. Yeah,
it strikes me that that's not a problem, but a struggle that I think a lot of directors have that I've worked with who are like younger directors or newer to directing, where they really don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
Because, for so long, there's such a culture of directors having impunity and doing whatever they want. And a lot of people abused that.
That's true.
And I think it's a fair impulse to not want to be mean or feel like you're being mean. And I think sometimes somebody on the team will be doing a bad job, I know sometimes it's been me. And I don't know what the way around that is other than saying to somebody, you need to do better.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that's a struggle for you?
Yes, definitely. I think that's being a kind of that's been a thing, I think, for me for a long time. Well, I remember that was my first semester at Columbia. And
when you have to do a million scenes.
Yes, we have to do a million scenes. And by the end of that semester, we had a short check-in with Anne and Brian Kulik, the other directing professor. And I was like, okay, so they will always give you some like feedback in general about your work and stuff, and they will ask, so what's on your mind? What are you thinking? Or like, what do you want to improve or something like that? I can remember. And I said that, well, I was still trying to figure out when do I be like, this is what we want and this is what I think we should do and let's do it, versus, oh yeah, okay, we should have a great environment. Like we shouldn't be abusive to each, that kind of thing. I still remember what Anne told me, but I think I'm still trying to figure it out. I think Anne told me that, well, it's in my DNA that, like, is it DNA? No. Yes. I mean, it's in my
essence.
It's in my essence that I won't be like I won't be like a super loud and aggressive person. So just go ask for it if you really think that's the best way to gear the team towards. So yeah, I think I was really I'm still taking that in and try to be like, if at that moment, I mean, it's also again moment by moment. If at that moment I feel like I have to say that this is not good, this is we should do better, I think I should do it. But it's always a struggle, especially I think I think I was sharing some of the struggle with other directors. Some are young, some are actually international, because we are being like, okay, I don't want to be, I don't want to say something wrong. And that I'm just trying, I think nowadays I'm trying to release that pressure. And again, going back to what's honest and what's real.
Yeah. And if it's a room where everybody gets to be, to have their feelings and share their feelings, sometimes those feelings are bad,
right.
Like
exactly. Yeah.
It's tricky. I think it's also like the hierarchy of the rehearsal room. in the States, certainly in New York, where it's like, I think it does add a burden or a pressure to the director to identify and solve those kinds of, like, whether they're interpersonal problems or problems in connecting to the work. Like, if somebody is trailing for whatever reason, it certainly does fall on the director to do that. What's your, because you talked about boundaries and everybody doing their specific job. What do you see as the sort of, like, end point of the actor's ability to say, this needs to be fixed?
Endpoint, by endpoint, you mean?
Where do you think the actor's responsibility stops and the director's takes over?
That's a very interesting question.
I have my feeling about it, which is that the actor's responsibility is kind of very, very, very limited to the things their character does, the things, the spaces their character moves in, and the objects their character touches. When it comes to, like, anything beyond that, unless it's a question of safety, and even then, I think you say it and you let go of it because it's not your thing. Like, I really do think that it's really circumscribed that way. Because I think what happens, because I'm an actor who a lot of people have told me, and I don't know how to take this, is, wow, you should be a director.
You should.
Well, I agree, but I'm acting right now, so. But I do have a great pitch for Macbeth. It's fucking, anyway. Okay. Yeah, and I think what the danger of going past those limits is, if you're doing more than that, then you're not able to do your job. But it gets tricky where it's like, if another actor really isn't giving you what you need in that moment, or you're playing different scenes or you're in different worlds, unless that's the deliberate effect, of course. Sometimes that is a functional tension. But I think if as an actor you're busy worrying about all those other things, then you're not able to do your work.
I agree. I think it sounds like, well, because, I mean, going back to this bigger, I think, and then I will go to the actors part. I mean, this bigger question of boundary. It's funny because I just had a conversation about it with my partner Star, which you met, and because she was like, well, I was really frustrated because she's also a theater maker, and she was like, I was really sometimes frustrated when I was taking the position of a director, but I have to do stage management, but I have to, like something like that. Yeah, I was like, I totally understand. And I think, and then we have like conversation about what should we do and what should we not do. And I started to think about what's the ideal boundary for me in my room, in my rehearsal room. I think definitely as what you said, it's really, really important to have those limitations for me. I think like if like I think that's healthier. Like for example, if because before when I was even younger as a director, I was more leaning towards be like, okay, actors do whatever. A change, well, because when I was younger, we were doing device work a lot, and I was sometimes also part of the writing process, and I was like, okay, actors do whatever line change you want, because as long as it's natural for you, you can change your line, right? It was a mistake. It was a mistake.
I'm shaking my head to people who can't see.
It was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake because it was not. Because you don't have that limitation, you don't have that boundary.
If anything can change, you can't make a solid choice.
Exactly. And
you can't commit, you can't trust, you can't affirm.
Exactly.
If everything's in flux, you know?
And I found it later more helpful when you be like, okay, can you just try to, connect with that line first and try to really say it in the way that is written? And really, you should really wrestle with it first.
Yeah.
Then just...
Sometimes lines are hard. Right. Sometimes the work requires effort.
Exactly. And maybe what the audience is seeing you making that effort, right? So it's so then I started to be like, we should create a clear boundary. That's the word that I use. Then we know what are we making effort towards, and everybody will feel more comfortable, or like creative too.
I think for me, a big factor is trust, right? Like trusting your ensemble to do their work, trusting your director, trusting your director's eye, trusting the script, trusting the rest of the team, so that you can do your own stuff. And I feel like where that trust erodes is more often than not within the self. Like if I am worried about somebody else's work, it's usually a sign that I'm not confident in my own work. Like I remember on The Hunger Artist, A Hunger Artist. Is it A Hunger Artist or The Hunger Artist? Fuck.
Well, it's somebody says hungry artist, which I feel may be more accurate. I don't know.
Hungry guy.
A hungry guy. Anyway.
But the show was very tech heavy. There were a lot of projections, and because the projections were very complicated, it took a long time for the projections team to kind of nail it down. Yeah. And I, as an actor and as an artist in the room, was getting really concerned. I was like getting sort of upset about it and like frustrated with the projection designers. I don't think I ever expressed any of that because, professionalism or whatever.
Yeah.
But personally, I was like really pissed. And what I realized kind of thinking about that was the reason that I was worried about their work was because I wasn't confident in mine. I wasn't confident in my mastery of the lines. I was doing a shit ton in that show. I was like doing a lot of stuff.
A lot shit ton.
And I think because I missed a week of rehearsals because I didn't miss them. We did it on Zoom, but I had COVID. Like I was just not confident in my own work. And so instead of feeling that and worrying and working on that, I was just like, no, it's they're the problem. Actually, it's not me. It's the projections, and that was like kind of a big realization for me on that process.
Yeah. That's true. Well, I share the concern with you, honestly. I hope I didn't show that too. But anyway, it's something.
But they did great work. They really.
Yeah, they in the end they really presented a really complex and also just magical world of projection, which adds to the nature of this piece. What I was gonna say? Oh yes, and so I think it was. So as you just said, it should be a clear boundary. So we know what's our individual focal point is. And as you said, those realization of, okay, actually I'm not doing, I was concerned because I was also not doing my division of work too. That realization is important too. I think because it sounds like we then can be more compassionate with each other. And I think then I was like, is there a second step or is there another part of my statement of what a rehearsal room should be? So first, clear boundary. And then I think, but it's a different situation of like being concerned and just try to take other people's job. It's more like then when a crisis happens, everybody can fill in. Like that once we know what we are doing clearly, like each of us doing clearly, then there's like a crisis happen either during tech or in the rehearsal room or something.
Like, for example, the projections breaking in the middle of your show.
Yeah, right. Then you guys really did a fantastic. I was still really moved by that performance. It was the whole computer system just break down, and off I think it's like all four of you just stay in your kind of actors energy and stays, and you just push through. It was really, really, really. It was a big learning process, but it was really impressive process for me too. And yeah, like then I hope that once we know the boundary, then we can contribute better.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I know, so for me, I was like, what happened in the show was the projections had been being challenging for the first couple of performances. Right. And then on the, was that the Saturday matinee?
It was the Friday
evening show. Yeah. So the projections had been like the computer for the projections had been kind of wonky. And for context, for this show was about a hunger artist, which is like a Kafka story, which is this guy who is like in late 19th century Bohemia, who like his art form is starving himself, and it's like the art form goes out of fashion, so then he joins the circus, and so then he starves himself until he dies, basically.
Yeah.
And the play adapted by our good friend Michael Landis was like that, but now and a live streamer. And I was playing him, and so the what was on stage was me in my room, which was this sort of circular platform, kind of an abstracted space with a massive projection behind me of me live streaming from the stage. And that stopped working. And then all of the projections stopped working. So including like some stuff from the ceiling, and like, anyway, very, very important to the play. And so when that happened earlier in the day, we were like, let's just power through it and hope it fixes itself. And in this time, the stage manager, Fouad Hassan, said, no, we're holding, we're going to try to fix this. They didn't fix it. It wasn't fixed. But the thing that we were talking about of like trust, I trusted Fouad. I trusted the tech team. I trusted my colleagues. I trusted you. I trusted the script to be able to support this little hold. So we kind of had an impromptu intermission. And what I did was I just stayed on stage. I, as the character, went and played with a puzzle, because he has a bunch of these sort of games around that he never really uses, but it's like, well, this is an interlude, so I'll just do that, respect the world of the show. And I think because of the trust there, it was able to work. Or I think if the team didn't trust each other or the stuff, it would have just fallen apart, and the audience would have also seen and felt that. And I know for me personally, it was also like a practical choice, which was like, because when we held, it was like kind of right before a really climactic moment for my character. And I was like, if I leave the stage now, I'm never getting it back. The audience, they're never going to get it back. They will stop paying attention. They'll stop caring. So they have to tough it out. So I have to tough it out. Was kind of my, not a conscious thought, to be clear, but afterwards when I was like, so why did I stay on stage? It was that feeling, that trust that needed to be maintained with the audience.
The best choice. I mean, it was like, also like thinking back, I was like, that's what like everybody had to do as a team to really stay like hanging there, and then that energy was felt by the audience. Really,
I feel think like they were more committed afterwards.
They were just like, they were more committed. They were trying to be with us and to see how can it go from the beginning to the end. Right? So it's interesting.
So note to all the people out there, have your tech break. It'll do nothing but good stuff.
Right. Yeah. Well, I feel like after that show, everybody become, we become comrades in a way. So that's again, a really unique theater experience for me.
Yeah. I mean, me too. Yeah. Do you want to talk more about A Hunger Artist?
In what
well, it was your thesis. It was your capstone to your MFA.
Yes.
And I'm curious why that was the move. Because it's an unusual thing to do an original work.
Yeah, that's true.
At least at Columbia.
Right. Well, I read that story a long time ago when I was, I think, in middle school. And then, I don't know, I think it was just that kind of bizarre and mysterious feeling that in that story that attracts me until now. And I got a chance to do a class assignment to come up with a concept of either a play or a story or whatever. So I immediately thought of a Hung artist. I didn't know why at that time. Well, now thinking back, because I wrote a thesis paper about this production, I think I started to realize, well, probably because when I read that story back in middle school, I was, like a lot of teenagers, I was not sure what I should do, and I didn't get a good grade, blah, 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 blah. But the Hung artist was in that story is super, super committed. And he's just like the most committed person I've ever seen, I guess. Like, cause he's fasting himself until death. Because at that time, at least, I feel like he has some belief or value or like something that he felt important. So I think I was resonating actually with that. And then, time jump, I was at grad school and I was doing this assignment, and I immediately thought of this connection between the story to the live streaming industry.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I felt this connection from doing grad school to somebody torturing himself for other people's entertainment.
Well, that's also true. That's, we should have another podcast talking about that. Yeah, well, it's, so live streaming is also a big feature in China, particularly in my hometown Hangzhou now, because my hometown Hangzhou is kind of like, there are a lot of tech companies in my hometown, and then they're messing up the whole culture. So live streamer.
I think you mean disrupting.
Disrupting, yes.
Which is value good.
Yes. So live streamers are starting to be a big part of our people's life. Like, we started to notice them in our daily lives. So I naturally thought of that connection. And so I just started working on this. I felt it was kind of, I know it's not a rational choice to do, original work and as a thesis production. But at that moment, I just felt like among other plays that I wanted to pick, I think this one is the one that I want to put up now, because I feel like why now is, especially doing adaptation, is an important question to answer. And I was like, okay, let's do it now and see if it will kind of resonate with people in a way.
It does strike me as strange that the expectation is against producing a new work, when one of the, it seems to me, benefits of doing an MFA, you're around other playwrights, you're around other actors, you're in this little community of artists who are all there to do your craft.
Right.
So you have the connections to people who will be making new work. Like, why would it not be encouraged or emphasized? Hey, you have this wonderful pool of people available, and you're going to be working with them down the line. Might as well start figuring out how to adapt their work.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, as you said, like, they never say no to you. They just say, well, you may meet more difficulty in the current ecosystem of that program now if you want to do a new play. Well, also, like, they will be like, well, because it's a directing thesis, you want to have a existing script that is more like a playground, so you can put your director's hand in there. So I mean, that's understandable, but as you said, I think I want to initiate that collaborative process for my thesis. So yeah, that's why I did that. Well, I mean, the process is as I think as they predicted, it was definitely going to be a more back and forth process, which I think I was happy about that. We have that, and then we have this end product. So
yeah. I also, I don't know. I just admire you for doing what you felt was right for your MFA, for your craft, for your process. And it's been elucidating for me to hear you kind of talk about how much thought and also practice you've put into building the space where everybody can kind of do that. Like, because we never really got to have this kind of conversation, and it's clear to me working with you and talking to you how to me it feels successful that effort has been of, here are the values I want to uphold, here's the room I want to make, here's the work I want to make using those values through that room. And it strikes me that you have in the one piece that we've done together. So maybe that was the outlier. I don't know. Okay. We'll have to do more. We'll find out.
We'll definitely do more, and I'll keep learning, keep growing. So let's do it together. Let's keep growing together.
Oh, I'm done. I'm finished.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of being finished, however, we are coming to the end of our conversation. Is there anything that you would have wanted me to ask, or anything that you want to say before we say our goodbyes?
Not that much. I mean, I would love to have more conversation about actor's process, actually. So maybe let's talk about that next time.
Part 2.
Yeah. Like, just really dig deeper into the process and try to be like, oh, actually, I thought you were like doing that, but actually you were doing this. Like that kind of conversation too. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's touch base in a couple months.
Sure.
Or go out for a drink.
Yeah.
Your building's right there.
Okay.
Great. Well, how can people find you if they want to reach out to you or hire you?
Oh, yes. Please hire me. Well, I'm an Instagram person, so you can find me at Yibin Wang.
How do you spell that?
YIBINBILLWANG, and my email is yibing97@gmail.com.
Rock and roll. Well,
great.
Yibin, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Carl.
And congrats again.
Thank you.
On finishing the MFA.
Yes, finally.
And good luck on your retreat.
Thank you.
That was Yibin Wang talking to me, Carl Bindman, on this episode of Art Workers, the Independent Artists Forum. I realized that in the first 2 episodes, I was saying the Independent Artists Podcast. That was a mistake. It won't happen again. Thank you for your understanding. And thank you for listening. As always, you can check the show notes for a list of works cited. You can reach out to me as well with any questions at my website or at the contact info in the bio. I would like to thank Louie Zong, as always, for the use of his song Fragments as this show's theme song, and I would like to thank you for listening. I'll see you next time when we have another guest.